Hi, I'm David. My wife Stephanie is on the camera, and you're watching this video because you're either thinking of renting our RV or have rented our RV. So today, this video is about tank management, and our RV is a Sunseeker LE 2250. So tank management. If you're an RVer, you already kind of understand the basics of this. If you're new to RVing, a lot of this is going to be new to you. But in this RV, we have 5 tanks that you need to pay attention to. The first one you're familiar with because you drive a car probably. It's your fuel tank. The fuel tank runs the motor of the RV, but in this RV, it also runs your generator. So you're going to monitor your fuel level like you normally do, except you must know that in order to operate your generator, you need over a quarter tank of fuel in the RV. So if you're on your way to your campsite and you do not intend to be plugged into an AC outlet at the campground, which you probably will be, but if you're not going to have outside electric power and you want to run your generator, you have to have over a quarter tank of fuel. So tank management wise, with the fuel tank, it's not just about the RV motor, it's also about the generator. The other thing is the propane tank. You know, we intend to leave you plenty of propane for an average trip. If we find it too low before your trip, we'll get it topped off. If you do have to fill it, we'll show you how to do that. Don't expect you to pay for propane, so if you do fill that tank, keep your receipts, we'll reimburse you. We also have a fresh water tank in the rig. I think it's a 35-gallon tank, but I'll show you where to find your tank capacities in just a minute. But basically, if you're going to a campground and you're not going to have a water spigot to hook the RV up to, you're going to be using water from the fresh water tank on the RV. Again, it's 35 gallons, and if you use that all up, you have to refill the tank. So you're best off using a water spigot at the campground. But certainly if you're driving down the road or you're away for the day and you're disconnected from water, you can use that tank. I just want you to know how to monitor the level of the tank and refill it whenever you need to. So we're going to look at that. Then the last 2 tanks you have are gray water tanks and black water tanks. So when we talk about gas and propane and fresh water, you're always thinking about how much you have. In terms of you want to have enough to consume. With gray water and black water, these tanks fill up while you're in the RV. Gray water comes from your sinks and your shower, and black water comes from your toilet. Black water is the nice word for it. With these tanks, it's the opposite of the other tanks. You're actually trying to keep them as empty as you can, because once those tanks fill up, you can't put anything else in them, black water and gray water, unless you get the tanks emptied. So for this reason, the gray water and the black water in particular, tank management is a big deal for RVers. You always want to try to put as little into the system as you can, so it reduces the number of times you need to go and empty the system out. So when I was a kid, I grew up in an apartment with a tenant below us. My parents were always telling me not to make noise on the floor because of the tenants downstairs. This is the same, but you're going to be saying to everybody, don't fill the tanks, right? So if you're washing dishes, as an example, you may want to fill a tub, do your dishes, and dump the tub in the woods instead of dumping it into your sink, and you're not filling your tank. For the toilet, what we do is at nighttime when we're sleeping, we're going to go to the bathroom in the RV. But during the day, when everybody's up and about, we use the restrooms in the campground to minimize the amount we fill those tanks. So those are the concepts, and that's what you want to pay attention to. So right now what we're going to talk about is checking your tank levels. So with the chassis, your gasoline for driving the motorhome and running your generator, that's just your gas gauge when you're driving the RV. That's just like your car at home. So nothing different there. We're not going to show you that. But if I look at this control panel on the wall right here, you'll notice that I have this series of black buttons with series of lights right here. And these show me my tank levels. So the bottom one, LPG, is liquid propane gas. That shows me, you can see the lights light up showing me the level of the tank. The battery shows me how much charge I have in my battery. Fresh is my fresh water tank, which we're going to fill that before you leave. You'll leave with it full. Black and gray water, these are, you can see it's on E, which is empty. That's great. That means there's nothing in them. When you leave with the RV, they should be on E, and we can check that if you want to. So that's how I can check my tank levels. How do I know what I have for tank capacity? Well, if I go up here to the front of the RV, up in the chassis, I'm going to flip the visor down. You'll notice we have a card here that shows all the specs for the RV in terms of the height, the width, but I also have tank capacities on here. So if you want to know how much capacity you have for fresh water, gray water, black water, that's all on there. All right. So those are my tanks. Those are my gauges. That's how I know how full my tanks are. In terms of filling the tanks, let's take a look at how I fill my propane and my fresh water. The other tanks are my gray and my black water. I need to know how to empty those. So we'll talk about that after we talk about filling. So let's go. I'm going around to the driver's side of the RV. And behind this door is my generator. You'll probably never have a reason to open this door. Like I said, it runs off of the fuel tank for the RV, and you have to have over 1/4 of a tank. You do that with the chassis gas gauge. Here's my propane fill. I'm going to open this up. My tank is in here down below. So this is my tank. The propane runs my stove. It runs my water heater when I'm not on shore electricity. And I think that's it. So I can turn it off by closing it. We intend to leave it open when you leave here. There's no reason for you to close it at any point in time, but in case it's closed, that's how you close it. If you run, that's how you open it. If you need to fill propane, it's right here. So you go to a filling station, and we showed you that there's a gauge, a level gauge inside the RV. This is a gauge out here, so you can see how much you have in either location. Okay? Now, this spigot right here, this hole right, not spigot, but the hole, if I take that off, this is how I fill my water. Now, when you're at a campground, the campground always has a dumping station. And at the dumping station, there's usually 2 hoses. One hose is for flushing your septic tank, so you don't want to fill your water tank with that. The other hose is usually going to be labeled potable water. And you would find the hose labeled potable water. If it's not there, you can ask the campground where you can fill your fresh water tank. They'll tell you. But you would stick the hose in here and fill your tank. There's a breather valve in here, so as it's filling, air can come out. But basically, when it's full, water is going to come out of here. You pull the hose out, just close that cap, and your water is going to be refilled for you. Okay? But, you know, ideally, if you're hooked up to a spigot at the campground, you're not going to be using this. You're only going to use this while you're traveling or away for the day, and you're not connected to water, and you probably won't have to fill this. Okay? Now, the last thing, and the thing that we want to talk about the least, is dumping our tanks, and that's always gray water and black water. So I'm going to go back here to the back of the RV. I'm going to open up this storage compartment, and below the storage compartment, you can see that we have a dumping valve right here. Now, I have an extension on here that's clear, and the reason I have that is while the tanks are emptying, it allows you to see the flow going into the hose. Sometimes it's difficult to know when the flow stops, so you have a visual here. You can kind of see when it's done. So what you're going to do is inside the storage compartment, I have a bin that has some supplies for dumping your tanks. I'll always have a box or a bag of disposable rubber gloves in here, so you can put them on, dump your tanks, and throw those away when you're done. And then you're gonna put on your rubber gloves. Now you're gonna go to the dumping station, and basically at the dumping station there's gonna be a hole in the ground. Typically it's a concrete pad with a hole in the middle of the concrete pad. and you pull up, so this is in close proximity to that pad and that hole. And then you're going to release the cover off of this, and that's just gray water from the last time I emptied it. You're going to leave that open. Right now the valves are closed. And then inside the bumper over here, there's a plug on the bumper. You're going to pull that off, and there's going to be a string in here, and the string is connected to a septic drain hose. You're going to pull that out. Okay. This is where it gets stored, and there's a cap on both ends. You're going to take your caps off. So on this end, this is going to connect to my drain hose right here. You want to make sure it's locked all the way in. And then there's this adapter that goes on the end over here. Again, this has plugs on both ends. You're going to take the plugs off, and this one tightens on, and this is going to go in the hole in the ground. Now, I don't have a hole in the ground here, but the campground's going to have a hole in the ground. This string is so that when you put it in the bumper, you have a way to pull it out. So you can just leave this here for now, or you can take it off, whatever you want. Now, you have two tanks that need to be emptied on the RV. You have a black water, you have a gray water. I recommend that you empty the black water first, so that way you can use the gray water to rinse your lines out, so there's no black water left in your hose or left in your pipes. So if you look up underneath, right here, next to this, you can see there's a gray handle right here. This is my gray water valve. I'm not going to open that right now. What we're going to do is go to the other side of the RV. This is the passenger side. In here, you'll notice we have a black handle. Now the handle on the other side was gray. This handle is black. The gray handle is for gray water. The black handle is for black water. You're just going to pull this valve out away from you. I'm not going to do it now because I don't know if there's anything in the tank and I don't have anything to dump into. But you're going to pull it out. You'll hear flow start. Now you're just going to let that go until you look in the clear connector on the other side and there's no more flow. Then at the dumping station, there's going to be a tank flush hose. You're going to connect that hose to this connector, and then when you turn the water on, it's going to flush out your black water tank. So it's going to rinse it. So if there are any solids left in the bottom of the tank, running this hose will clear those solids out and run them outside. You shut that off. You're going to close your valve, and now you're going to do your gray water. So we're going to come over here, and because your gray water tank has no solids in it, you're just going to pull your gray water valve. You're going to monitor the flow in this clear section of pipe, and when the flow stops, you're going to close your valve. You're just going to watch for any kind of last final flow and drips coming out of here. You're going to wait until it stops, and then when it stops, you're basically going to unscrew this connector, put your cap on, and then you're going to, remove this, throw that back in your bin. You're then going to hold your hose up and let anything drain out of it that's still in there. So you're going to drain it inside. Well, actually, you should do that before you remove that end piece. And you're just going to put your cap back on here. Actually, make sure your rope stays on there, because otherwise you can't pull the pipe back out of here. Now this pipe is a very tight fit inside the bumper. You'll notice it has sort of flat sides on it. Those flat sides need to be lined up with the square bumper exactly. And you're basically going to store this pipe inside. You might want to crunch it up before it goes in there. And again, very tight fit here. And just give it a push, and you coil up the string, and you leave it in the bumper so that the next time you need it, it's easy to get to. Now, inside the camper earlier, I said to you, tank management is a big deal. Well, unless you like dumping gray and black water, you now realize why. You want to minimize the number of times you need to go to the dumping station and dump your tanks. It's no big deal, really, but it's not pleasant. Don't want to do it, and you want to manage your tanks inside the RV. Again, dump your dishwater, use the public bathrooms in the campground during the day, kind of minimize. Now, it's possible, there are a lot of campgrounds today that the campsite itself has a septic disposal where you can pull in, you can hook up your septic hose and leave it there for the duration of your camp. If that's the case, you can take long showers, you can use your bathroom exclusively, you can dump all your dishwater in there. You're never going to fill your tanks. Everything is going to flow right out immediately and you have no need to worry about it. Otherwise, tank management is a big deal. So you might even want to make sure you reserve campsites where you have a septic hookup at the campsite. But every amenity you have, the price of the campsite goes up. You have water and electric is one price. Septic is usually another. So that's really everything around tank management for this RV. If you have any other questions, I mean, we do have a series of videos. We have other topics covered in other videos, so check those out and let us know if you have any questions. Otherwise, happy camping, and we'll see you at pickup and delivery.